Hello, welcome back to IVFU. Today, you're going to hear a conversation I've been wanting to have for a long time. I'm excited for you to meet Brooke Kingston, a woman living child-free after infertility and loving it. She's also been extremely active with Resolve.org, which is a vital support and information organization where you can find all paths to family making. So, for those of us who know that dark tunnel where we wonder if we should keep going or stop and choose a different path, Brooke is a shining light up ahead and a chance to understand a whole new meaning of happiness and peace.
I was thinking I would go and sit on the futon instead of in my chair that squeaks when I move.
Oh, completely. That's a good idea. Cozy up on the futon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, hi, Brooke. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited that you're excited. But are you comfy now? You're on your futon?
Yes, I'm comfy now.
Life is good.
Life is good.
So I just want to kind of start with a little bit of an intro. My first question is, how old are you?
I am 39.
39.
I turned 40 this summer. Yep.
Oh, coming up on the big 40.
Yes.
But 39, so you are young. You are young to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm old, so everyone's young to me. And what do you do for a living, and what does your husband do for a living?
I'm an accountant, and he is a plumber.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys are, you like to say childless, not by choice, I'm sorry. You are child-free, not by choice. That's why you started to stop me there.
Correct.
What to you are the differences?
So the big thing for me is that child-free implies that it's a positive thing. Childless feels like a very negative situation. And so I just feel like child-free, not by choice, or child-free after infertility expresses that we made the choice to move on as a family of two, and that is part of our healing process, and it's a positive choice for us.
I love that. And I quoted you here. You said, we all feel empowered when we are in charge of our choices.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's such an amazing way of putting it. And you're right. It's child-free. It's not by choice in that you woke up as a baby and said, I will never have children, but it's by choice in that you came to a turning point and you said, this is the choice that we're making. And owning that is very empowering.
It is. Yeah, definitely.
So I wanted to kind of go back a little bit. You told me that you and your husband, ironically, you guys met at a baby shower.
We did.
Which is amazing. That is too funny.
We did. Yeah.
And that was in 2008, you said?
Yes.
And what was that meeting like? Did you see each other across a crowded baby cake, or what happened?
I just blew him away with my knowledge and, baby trivia. We were playing Baby Jeopardy, and, I just nailed every question.
I think we both have similar feelings about baby showers is what I'm feeling here. Yeah. And did you guys talk at the baby shower, or you just kind of were eyeing each other across the room?
We were just eyeing each other. He's 6'5" and heavily tattooed. And so he's hard to miss, but I did notice him at the baby shower, and he noticed me, and we both said something to the expectant mother, and I was like waiting and waiting for him to reach out and contact me, and he didn't. So I went and found him on MySpace.
We are in 2008. Yeah. And this is amazing.
We're deep in 2008. So yeah.
Vintage social media. Yeah.
Yeah. And then let's see. So first date was in early June, and we were engaged in January.
Oh, that's soon. That is soon.
We got married in October of 2009 and started trying in April of 2010.
That is soon. So did you always know you wanted kids? Were you like, we got to get on this right away, or what was the plan?
Yeah, I think I always figured I would be a mom. You don't ever think like it'll be hard, obviously.
Right.
We're told from a very young age that if you look at someone the wrong way, you'll end up pregnant. Yeah, I think we were both just kind of like, let's do this.
Wow.
So we tried with good timing for about a year. And at that point, I got a referral to see a specialist, and she gave me that with no question. She realized I was obviously very well versed. I was on the bump and talking about fertility and making babies like pretty much all the time.
Wow. Yeah. You were doing your homework for sure.
Yeah.
This was not casual. Yeah.
Yeah. So we went and
Wow.
got the testing done, and I knew I had a shorter luteal phase, which is the time between ovulation and menstruation.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and that's relatively easy to correct. Usually vitamin B under a doctor's supervision
Hmm.
will correct it. And then we got my husband's tests back. And that was where we discovered that we were really in some trouble trying to conceive.
And what was the problem at his end?
So when they're examining sperm, they're looking at three things. They're looking at the count.
Mm-hmm.
They're also looking at the morphology, which is the shape. And then they're looking at motility, which is, are they moving?
Mm.
And, people don't realize that the male body produces so many sperm that not all of them are going to be perfect. We
Right.
see, the picture of like this perfect sperm with one tail swimming into an egg. And, they're making so many that they're not actually all good sperm.
Mm-hmm.
But we had very low count and most of them were misshapen. We didn't have any like very low forward motility. So we kind of were working with effectively azoospermia, which is the absence of sperm. So
Oh, wow.
it
Okay.
was quite low in terms of
Yeah.
counts.
What did that feel like when you got that information?
We got the information back at different times. I don't remember when we got mine, but we got his testing back the day after my 30th birthday.
Oh my God.
So that was
Yeah.
devastating
Yeah.
to
It's
get
hard
that
enough
news.
turning 30, let alone getting that kind of information.
Yeah.
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 And was there that moment of like, we're going to have to change course here? Or did you have a conversation, a little summit meeting in the kitchen, or what? How did it shake down?
Yeah, because I'd been doing, so much research and knew what they were testing for and knew the parameters that they'd be looking for, I knew it was bad.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was a hard conversation to have when I came home because I, took the call at work, unfortunately, and came home. It felt very, very dismal. And to have to tell him that this is not
Yeah.
looking very good. And
Did you have sort of options in mind already when you told him? Or, where was your head when you were telling him that? Were you more worried about him or yeah.
yeah, definitely was worried about him. We had decided that we were going to do 3 IUIs.
Mhm.
Um, IVF felt like very far out of reach, not only cost wise, but just, it's a big gamble and a lot of money to spend. And it's just for a chance to possibly get pregnant.
Yeah, and it's very
And
invasive too.
extremely, yeah. And
Mhm.
so we just kind of decided, we'd had quite a few talks up to that point. They're all kind of a blur now, almost 10 years later. But we decided that would be our line in the sand and getting those counts. You can do some lifestyle changes, and we tested again about 6 months later, I think it was, and it hadn't changed at all.
Mhm. Well,
So,
and it's also another thing that really touched me about your story is there is, I think, very little attention and very little compassion paid to male infertility.
correct.
And you can not ever know that it's the male end of things the male end of things. Um, sorry, I am 12 sometimes. But you wouldn't know. And so I think there's two things to that. One is that the woman can be overburdened with the, maybe the guilt or the damaged, let's say, self-image, but
Hmm.
also that men aren't getting the support that they need very often because either they don't know it or it's hard for them to open up about something like that. It's very stigmatized and
Yeah, the assumption is definitely that it's something that the woman did.
right.
Um, or I try to be more inclusive with my language, the person with the uterus. Um,
Oh yes, the person with the ears. How
uh,
2021 of you, Brooke. That was very
oh,
well said.
but and there is a lot that can go wrong. We've got most of the parts. We've got the uterus, the ovaries, the fallopian tubes. There's, a lot that can go wrong. But there is just this assumption that all men are virile and all men are fertile. And when
Right.
that doesn't happen, it can be pretty isolating and a lot of people don't talk about it. But when you break down the causes of infertility, it's roughly 30% female, 35 the male, and then the rest is either combination or unexplained.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So it's a
Okay.
lot more common than we think. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So now once you get this news, originally you said 3 IUI.
Hmm.
Obviously now you have this new piece of information. What was that decision like? What were the options at that point?
Yeah. So, there was a lot going on in those 6 months. We were doing some lifestyle changes and we were kind of thinking about things. And we knew from speaking with our reproductive endocrinologist, how many sperm we needed for it to, be worthwhile to do an IUI. And so we were just hoping that we would get there.
And also, I think you told me, I just want to say for people who might be thinking it, you thought about sperm donation or you didn't think about sperm donation because Dan wasn't comfortable with it. And I think you told me that you were fine with that, right?
Yeah. And I was also kind of thinking about other alternatives to parenting. We did talk about adoption. We didn't really feel called to do that. And it can be a really daunting process as well. And it can be quite expensive for, an opportunity to maybe be chosen as a parent.
Yeah.
And for us, fostering definitely didn't quite feel right. I have a big heart for families who foster, but I couldn't imagine, having to possibly give a child that I'd bonded with back. So that didn't feel like the right choice. And then I started thinking about, well, what if we were a family of two? And I happened to find a book called Sweet Grapes by a couple that had also chosen to be a family of two. And in reading it, so many of my questions and fears were addressed and answered that I kind of started to feel a little bit more comfortable with that being a possibility. And so after the 6 months when we retested again and we didn't really have any better results, we talked a lot about it, and it began to feel like something that we could accept, and it felt like the right thing for us, I guess. It's kind of odd because, I'm in this infertility world, and yet I've never gone through treatments. I haven't taken Clomid. I haven't done all of that.
Oh my God, that's really
kind
true.
of this ginormous anomaly when I think about it. But once we felt like it could be something that we could come to peace with, we decided to move in that direction and decide that we were going to be child-free after infertility and, begin essentially like our healing process because we knew we were going to grieve.
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about grieving. How was that process for you?
I mean, it's ongoing.
Yeah.
It doesn't end. There are still days that are like hurtful and, triggers. I don't know if you've heard of the ball in the box theory of grief, but that really resonates for me. Oh, okay. So this is a good one. So if you were to imagine that there's a ball in a box and in the box is a button, and every time the button gets pushed, it causes pain in your grief. Initially, after a traumatic event, the ball is rolling around the box and it's big. So it hits the button a lot, pretty often. But as you get further and further away from the traumatic event, the ball begins to shrink. And so it's still rolling around in the box, but it isn't as big anymore. So it doesn't hit the button as often, but it still hurts when it does.
Wow.
So for me, it really resonates that, yes, time, kind of makes things feel less, the pain isn't on the surface as much. It isn't as ever present as it was initially, but it's still under the surface. And there are still things that are going to make my pain ball hit the button. And I'm going to have that pang of grief. And so understanding that grief isn't linear is also helpful. But I went to therapy. I started seeing a therapist pretty shortly after we were diagnosed because I was like, I'm going to need to, even if we ended up parenting somehow or something changed for us, I knew that there was going to be a sense of grief. There's a grieving of the assumption that you're going to marry this person that you love and you're going to make a baby and it's going to be easy. You lose that sense of the innocence and ease of becoming a parent. So I think that was probably the best thing I did was finding myself a therapist really quickly. And she's wonderful.
Do you still see her?
I don't still see her, but we have kept in touch. So I've graduated from her 3 times now. the initial, I think I saw her pretty straight, probably for a good 2.5 years.
Wow.
Initially it was like every week, every other week. And then we kind of spanned it out a little bit more. And so I graduated, and then my friend from high school that I was close with got pregnant. And so I went back.
God. Right back in. Yeah.
Right back in. And, that was only a couple sessions, I think, kind of to work through some of that. And then when my sister got pregnant, I went back. So that was a tough one.
Yeah. And I'm just curious to pause a second on Sweet Grapes. What was in there that really struck a chord with you?
It's co-written by a couple named Jean and Michael Carter. And they basically go through their whole process. They did have like much more of an infertility journey than we did. They did do some treatments, but they talked a lot about just things that you think of as like, well, if we don't have kids, we'll have no one to take care of us. Well, you're not really guaranteed to have anyone take care of you when you're older. They talked a lot about how they came to peace. Like they went on a vacation to kind of just, close that chapter. And then the other thing that actually really resonated with me that sounds incredibly counterintuitive is she got an IUD. And she did that because she felt like she needed to know what life was going to look like. And that really resonated with me because all this time that we were kind of like leaving it open for something to happen, you're still on the roller coaster of, is my period going to come? Did we defy all the chances and did something happen? For that whole second year, it was just, still crushing every time. And so I talked to my husband, and I was in therapy at the time, and I talked to my therapist as well. And I went back to my OBGYN and discussed that option with her. And I feel like I had researched it well and knew that that would bring me a sense of peace and a sense of calm and get me off the roller coaster. And so I did end up getting an IUD.
Wow.
Yeah, that marked a different point in the whole thing for me because, like I said, I wasn't on the roller coaster anymore. Right. It was just, okay, this is life, like I don't have to second guess every month.
Exactly. And I know it was for me as well. It was a very long time before I could stop paying attention to my cycle and looking at what date it was and when I had my last period. And in fact, I had a drawer in the kitchen filled to the brim with like syringes and suppositories and leftover this and that and gauze and, alcohol swabs and I mean, the whole 9 yards. And it took me about a year to pack up and throw out that drawer. I didn't, know what I think it was? I was done. I couldn't even bring myself to open the drawer and, look at that stuff. And then I remember that day I finally packed, we actually moved and I had to close the drawer and clear it out. Yeah. And it was very painful for me. I still had not healed from it. So I think it's amazing that you took that step because it's that declaration of, this is the decision. I'm empowered by my choices and I am making that choice to shut the door and move forward.
Exactly. And I did do that with the caveat that if I freaked out before I turned 35, we could take the IUD out and see what happened.
Right.
But we never have revisited it. So I feel like it was the right decision for us.
And so you have nieces and nephews?
I do. I have 3 nephews and
wow.
And we're going to have a niece in June.
Wow. So your sister's been pregnant several times.
Yes. Yeah.
And is it different for you each time or what is that experience like?
Oh, gosh. So when my sister first got pregnant, she told me via email, which was very thoughtful of her. And I threw my phone across the room and then picked it up and called my therapist.
So wait, are you being facetious that it was thoughtful or it truly was because it gave you the opportunity? She gave you your space to,
Yeah, exactly. It's email is better than text. On the phone or face to face is like, you don't feel free to have your reaction.
Right.
Because someone's watching. And text is like, maybe someone's got their red notifications on or something.
Oh gosh, right.
Text can be kind of hard. So email is just a nice way of, putting it out there and like there's no confirmation that it was seen or anything like that. So that was the most thoughtful thing that she could do. And it was hard. So at the time, she didn't live that far away from me in the Phoenix area, but I saw her 3 times throughout her pregnancy.
Wow.
We initially got together for lunch and then at her baby shower. And then my first nephew was born 3 days after my birthday. So my sister was very, very pregnant at my birthday party that year. So, yeah. So, I mean, it was really, really hard. I struggled a lot with how am I going to be able to go to family functions and see this baby or my parents, will never have grandchildren from me. There was a lot that went into it.
Was it also maybe like, why does she get to carry the family traits on and I don't, that kind of thing? Because I had that with my sister.
No, it wasn't that so much. It was just really painful to think of her pregnant. And I guess it was almost like I felt like I didn't contribute anything to the family.
Oh,
Not that
wow.
like carrying on the traits or anything, but like I struggled with what my value was in the family if we didn't have children.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, so it was really hard. And, looking back on it with conversations with my mom, I think we're all extremely relieved that the worst didn't happen, which was I wouldn't be able to, be around my family or be around my sister and my
Yeah.
nieces and nephews. And instead, what happened is the second I saw that baby, now you're going to hear my ugly cry voice.
This is why the
The
cameras are
second,
off. Yeah.
the second I saw that baby, I just fell in love. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously still get emotional thinking about it.
Yeah.
And everything changed. And
Yeah.
I started going to see my nephew every week. Every week I would leave work a little bit early, and I would go to my sister's house and spend a few hours playing and holding my nephew. And we did that every single week, except for if I was sick or traveling.
Wow. How old is he now?
He will be 7 July
Oh,
1st.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he
So
first was born, had you already gotten the IUD? Had you already made that choice?
yeah, that was a couple of years out. Yep.
Yeah.
And obviously, since I saw my nephews every week, for the last almost 7 years now, 2 more nephews were added to the family in that time, which means that my sister was pregnant 2 more times.
I know. Well, now what was that like?
It was hard,
Yeah.
but it wasn't as hard because I knew that at the end of it, I was going to get this new little person that I would love.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will want to apologize or, kind of almost protect me, which is, a very thoughtful thing that they do. And my response is kind of like, don't flatter yourself. You're not my sister. Like, nothing will ever hurt or be as difficult as my sister's first pregnancy. So,
Wow. Yeah. And where was your husband at that time? I mean, where was he? I know where he was, but while you were suffering like that, was he also feeling similar?
he's always just been the one who held me up.
Mhm.
You kind of asked about like healing. During this time also, I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to go and have a great career then too. Because,
Mhm.
I was kind of in this like kind of boring job that was stable and would have been fine. I didn't have to travel or anything. It wasn't difficult. So if we had children or we were parenting, it wasn't going to be a difficult job to have. And then I decided, well, I'm going to go make a bigger career for myself. So that was part of my healing also, I guess, was doing something for myself.
Mhm.
And he's just always been super, super supportive. One of my last jobs at this giant global conglomerate company that I worked with, I had to travel. I was away from home for 2 weeks every quarter
Mm.
and internationally as well. And
Wow.
he's just always been like, go get it.
That's
Like,
great.
yeah, I don't think he felt like he needed to be a dad as much as I pictured myself being a mom.
Mm.
So I think our decisions were, in some ways easier for him. But yeah, he's just always been a great support to me, and he's by my side with everything that goes on, all the grieving and stuff. And he knows, he can see it on my face if we're out somewhere, not now because there's a global pandemic, but
Right. Which works in your favor a little bit right now. I'm
it
just
does
kidding.
work in my favor a
Yeah.
little bit.
There's a couple good
Yeah,
things about COVID. Yeah.
yeah, he knows what's going to possibly trigger me or set me off. I remember one time I was going to be starting a new job at a new company, and he was like, remember, they're going to ask you if you have kids.
Mm.
And I hadn't thought about it. So he's just always that super thoughtful kind of rock.
Yeah. Yeah. Did he have his own grieving process once it was all said and done?
We didn't talk about his so much
Mm-hmm.
because he was like, his concern was always for how I was doing.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I think his process was also wrapped up in making sure that I was okay.
And did you then, or do you still hit the people that completely miss the mark? Do you have those moments where people just say the worst, most annoying things?
I don't, I guess the good thing is like being so far out from it now, like it
Yeah.
doesn't really come up as often.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And that's not a trigger for you if somebody says something. Because one thing I kept running into before we stopped was nobody wanted me to stop. So they just kept saying, well, what if this and what if that? And, and I've even done storytelling events talking about how we stopped.
Yeah.
And people come up to me afterwards and they're trying to give me their, Cocapelli doll to put under my pillow and I was like, we're so far gone with that at this point. Like this is, and it really just kind of made my blood boil or I had people say, well, thank God you don't have kids. Guess what we went through this morning? He was up at 6 a.m. I mean, have you hit those as well?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah. People don't want you to stop because they feel like if you keep going, you'll eventually get what you want. Well, we decided that what we wanted was to be happy as a family of two.
Exactly.
Someone once was like, I'll be praying for you and we'll have hope for you. And first of all, I'm an atheist. So
me too. Yeah.
Not super comforting for me. I think it's more for you, but whatever.
Yeah.
But, I stopped them and I just said, you know what, if you're going to hope for something for me, hope for us to have a happy and peaceful marriage because that's what's meaningful to me. Like,
yeah. And it's funny. I have a note. Let's talk about being happy. That's a question I have. I'm thinking, a lot of people inside and outside the infertility world, they think it's impossible to be truly happy if you can't be a parent.
Yeah.
And so I would love for you to talk about that concept of being happy, all the things you can do and all the ways in which you can shape your life and, the money and the career and the dogs. Oh my goodness, your dogs are adorable. I believe that it is possible to be truly happy without having children. And I feel like it's such, I know I'm like telling you to talk and then I don't shut up. I wonder so much how much of that is real in terms of what we really want and what we really need to be happy. If we all grew up on a desert island with no other people, would we suddenly need to have kids? Or is this something we've been watching on TV since we were born? And, we feel like we're supposed to have kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what?
That didn't end in a question. I'm sorry. No. I just needed to say all of those things at once. But
no. That's where I feel like people who choose child-free, like from the outset, are viewed as like so brave because they're like kicking the societal norm to the curb.
So was there this moment where it sounds like Sweet Grapes, just literally based on the title alone, probably helped enormously with this. But was there that moment where you were like, oh, there's a real happiness that's available without having children?
Yeah. It wasn't like one single moment, but it just kind of built, and we're a family, just the two of us. And everyone always is like, when are you going to start a family is something that you hear so often. And it's like, we need to normalize that two people who make a loving home are a family too.
Do you think maybe sometimes you and your husband have a stronger relationship than couples that have kids because you have more time for each other?
Yeah, because we're not parenting, we can focus on each other. Raising children is stressful and you have to, you're not the center of your partner's world anymore. And because we're not parenting, there are so many things that we get to do and, that we wouldn't have gotten to do otherwise. I've gotten to go and build my career. I got to travel. I wouldn't have the bandwidth to be the aunt that I am to my nephews. That was a big one for me. And that was actually a really comforting one because that gave me a way to have an impact in a small person's life without parenting myself. I get to volunteer and do all of these things. Who knows if I'd be able to go to Washington, D.C. for Advocacy Day with Resolve every year if I was parenting. There's an endless list, honestly, of things that we have the resources and freedom to do because those resources aren't being spent on parenting and raising a child.
Yeah. Do you ever feel relieved that you don't have kids? This is sort of like a quick example, but if you're on a plane and there's a child going apeshit behind you, did you ever have a moment of like, ooh, I don't have to deal with that?
Yes. I think where my sense of relief comes in is like the mommy wars, how you choose to parent and, vaccinating or not vaccinating, breastfeeding or not feeding, baby-led weaning, like all the decisions that a parent has to make to raise their child. It seems like some of them are so controversial and people get very judgmental. And I think that's where my relief is that I don't have to deal with that.
That is such a good point, though. It's a whole language of stress and anxiety that you don't have to participate in.
Mm-hmm.
When you empower yourself by making those positive choices, as you were saying, you also can take the win whenever possible, you know? So exactly like you're saying, I don't have to worry about vax, anti-vax. I don't have to, I mean, with COVID, yes, but I don't with the kids, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about the fact that, there's lead in Croc shoes or whatever the thing. I'm totally making that up. That is not a thing. Please do not sue me, Crocs. I'm just saying, all of those moments in life that can be hugely anxious making. And just like you said, judgy, you are literally just like, bye-bye, like you just don't have to be part of that. Yeah. But I think that's crucial. That's a really big plus.
It really is.
And as far as triggers, I'm assuming baby showers are probably still a trigger.
Yeah, baby showers, it's an interesting thing because it feels so ironic. I don't want to be left out. I want to be invited. I want to be wanted there to support you. But I'm going to need you to accept the fact that I'm not going to be there. I don't want to be left out. I kind of decided that there were 3 baby showers that I for sure had to go to. My sister's, my sister-in-law's, and my best friend from high school. And I did those, except my sister-in-law and brother-in-law don't have children. But I went to those. And then after that, it was like on a case-by-case basis. And I have been to a couple of baby showers after that. I generally prefer if they're going to have mimosas or something.
I was going to say if they've got good food and nice cocktails. Yeah. What are the giveaways?
Yeah, exactly. I've learned how to, game that system too. But it's just some I go to and some I don't. And there's been a couple that I planned to go to. And then the day of, I was just like, I'm not in the right headspace for this. I'm not going to do it. I feel very thankful that I have friends that don't take it personally, that it's not something about them. I know that not everyone has that kind of support or that understanding, but I've just always been very upfront about I have to do what's right for me. My self-care and my comfort is first. And I can't choose any other way. So, I might regret not going, but if I'm so anxious that I can't even get myself in the car, that is not going to be a good situation for me. So.
Yeah. And was this something that you found on your own, this idea of self-care, or did that come through therapy or Resolve, or where did that come from?
That was through therapy. My therapist was really amazing about helping me set my boundaries. Even if they weren't for anyone else, just my boundaries. Like, I didn't tell anyone that those were the 3 baby showers that I was going to go to, but in my head, that was all I had to commit to. And anything beyond that was my choice. Like, my sister's baby shower, for instance, was in our hometown, which is Tucson, Arizona, which is a 2-hour drive from where I live. And we made a plan. She was great with helping me make plans. We made a plan that my husband would come down with me and he and my dad would go do, guy things somewhere. And if I ever felt like, okay, this is too much, I need to get out of here, they would come and get me.
They were on call.
They were on call. And so
Perfect.
I made it through. Present opening is really, really difficult when everyone's oohing and awing over tiny baby clothes. So I left before she opened gifts. So they came and got me and we went to Applebee's, I think, and had appetizers and beers. So,
oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, just that was part of my self-care, was knowing what I'm comfortable with and what I'm not, and avoiding what is going to really be the hard stuff.
Yeah. And I think, I had 2 cousins younger than me, much younger than me, both pregnant at Thanksgiving one year. We have like 30 to 40 people in Philly every year meet up, and it's a huge family thing. And 2 of my younger cousins were days from delivering.
Oh,
so they were like 9 months pregnant, but then they weren't there, which I was so happy that they weren't there. And by the way, I adore these cousins. So, as you know, how
but
this
you
goes.
Have a sense of relief.
Oh my God. Well, then at the second day, they were like, oh, we're going to FaceTime the 2 cousins and see them be all pregnant. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I thought I escaped this thing. And not only that, but we're in this presidential suite. That's just the name of like the top floor of this hotel in Philly, with giant flat screen TVs, one at either end of the room, so that whether you're facing one way or the other, everyone can watch the game or whatever is on the TV. So suddenly 30 people, 40 people, looking at giant flat screens on both sides. There's not an angle you can sit at where you don't see them. And they FaceTime these two cousins. And I literally it was like a cartoon. Like I backed out of the room, around the corner, into the bathroom, closed the door, and just sat on the tiles and cried and waited for it to be over. Not a single person noticed I was gone, which was so interesting too, because it was like, thank God no one saw me be a wuss, but also, why didn't anyone notice that I had to leave the room? So it is that sense of isolation and sort of otherness is, I think, what sets me off. That's my trigger.
Yeah, feeling like you're alone in that moment and no one else is understanding what you're going through.
No one's understanding. And you're like, thank God I'm away from that. But why don't I get to be part of that? And they need to want me to, and then at the same time, I would imagine, do people walk on eggshells around you? Do you get a sense some of the time that they correct themselves or they avoid things, mentioning kids stuff or something?
I think in the beginning, maybe not so much now. The way I talk about it is so different.
Well, that's true. You're very open about it too.
Yeah.
I think there's people that they are child free by choice or not by choice, and they don't talk about it. Not that they have to, but they don't talk about it for whatever the reason is, and then nobody knows whether they can talk about it or
Yeah. Early on, it was like, I wasn't ever ashamed, but it felt so much like airing my personal business. Especially as we were going through it. Just while it was fresh and raw, I didn't really talk about it a lot. If people asked if we had kids, I would just say, no, it wasn't in the cards. And, then the other day, someone asked what I was doing this weekend at work. And I was like, oh, I'm filming a podcast. And they're recording a podcast. And they're like, oh, what's it about? I was like, oh, infertility. I just left it at that. And that's how that coworker found out that I don't have kids, because I put two and two together.
Right.
I feel like if you're out and open about it, people will be less on eggshells. But I'm also really comfortable with correcting people when they say something that's fucked up.
Oh, that's good.
I have, people have said, did you try to have kids? Why didn't you have kids? Why didn't you keep trying? And I was like, that's none of your business.
Oh, wow. That's good. Shut it down. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not afraid to just kind of shut it down. But that comes, like I said, that comes with time and feeling empowered. I would not have been able to be that bold while we were going through it. And now I just I don't really give any fucks anymore. I guess I talk about it so much. It's become part of my normal life. And so I'm absolutely fine talking about different aspects of infertility and, obviously my story, but it's when you start asking questions about unsolicited questions, about, my home life or my private life with my husband, that's where I draw my boundary with people I don't know.
Oh, yeah. And so I'm curious to kind of shift gears a little bit into helping people, which is something that you are very passionate about doing. When did you come into working with Resolve, and kind of what are the different roles you've played in helping people through Resolve?
So right around the same time I started seeing my therapist, I also found Resolve and went to a support group meeting. So at that first meeting, the leader announced that she was going to be moving and they needed someone to take over. And I was like, sure, I'll lead the group, because it was really just a lot of
your first day.
Yeah, my first day. Sure, I'll just take over, because that first meeting was really us, sitting around and just talking. And so it just felt very much like, well, all I have to do is send out the email and plan to hey, everyone come sit at, Panera Bread and, we'll chat for a couple hours. So I didn't probably know what I was getting myself into, but so I did take over that, and I did it for about 3 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Everything with Resolve, I kind of I start out as a participant, I volunteer, and then I go 0 to 60, and then I'm in charge of the thing. In 2013, I discovered the Arizona Walk of Hope, which is one of their big fundraisers every year.
And this is a Resolve fundraiser?
It is a Resolve fundraiser. Yep. Okay. And so I went to that. And then the next year I volunteered. And then the next year I was the chair of the event. And I chaired the event for a couple of years, I think.
Gotcha.
And so in 2013, there was a bill in Arizona that was very anti-family or anti-family building. And So they were talking about going to Resolve's Advocacy Day.
So what is Advocacy Day?
So Advocacy Day is a federal fly-in. It's at the federal level. You're at the U.S. Capitol, and people come from all over the country. And Resolve is extremely well organized. They also work with ASRM, which is the American Society of Reproductive Medicine. It's a joint event. So it's just a really inspiring event. I remember after the first one I went, I was hooked like immediately.
Yeah.
So I was actually the chair of the event in Washington, D.C. for 2 years.
Wow.
I now get to take a step back and just be a regular participant again. But yes, there's not very many people who've had the experience of going to Washington, D.C. and walking the halls. Oh, there's an ugly face cry again. Like walking the halls and looking up at the rotunda at some point in the day and just being there in that moment and doing something so empowering, literally going to your legislator and saying, here's what I need you to help me with, and here's how you can help. And it's just absolutely amazing. I love it. I'll never
That's
not
amazing. But, it's interesting to me too that from the day of your first meeting at Resolve, you began to help people as well. So while you were getting help, you were also helping people immediately and increasingly so, obviously, over the years, and also having had more experience to pull from when you help people. Do you feel like maybe that's a part of your healing as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's something I can control.
Yes.
So when you're struggling with infertility, even though we made our choice, it's something I can control. It's something I can do that I feel like I can be productive. We made our choice. I'm not there for me. I'm there for my nephews and my future niece and, all these other kids and everyone who's finding out that they're have the disease of infertility. I'm there to make it so that if they struggle with infertility when they decide to build their families, hopefully it'll be easier. Hopefully it'll be far less expensive. It'll be more accessible. We're there for the next generation. So it feels like something that I can leave behind, even though, I'm not going to contribute to the world with having children of my own. I can contribute in this way and make something easier for someone else.
Yeah, which also kind of feeds your soul, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think the idea of nurturing people and causes and life improvements for people is something that's in all of us. And, some of us nurture a person, a human child, and some of us nurture a whole generation of people or a whole generation of policymaking, and which I think is great. And so I'm curious, this was one of the things I was thinking about too, as I was kind of putting questions together for you. It was very hard to find someone who's child-free who could talk about it. Not even whether they wanted to or not, but who could talk about it, first of all, and then if they wanted to. This may be obvious, but why do you think that is?
I think that's probably because they have trauma. Because we came to our decision, kind of like I said, as an anomaly, having not done treatments. I don't have that trauma. Talking about it doesn't remind me of the IVF cycles that failed. It doesn't remind me of those struggles. It just reminds me of a decision that I came to with my husband and the grief that we went through. So I guess my assumption would probably be that going through however many years of treatments, it's a lot harder to fathom talking about it when that means that you have to relive all of that.
Which doesn't mean, again, that they can't be happy, they can't find happiness, but to sort of open that box back up, to bring back that metaphor, is not something that a lot of people want to do.
Yeah, it seems like everyone deals with this grief in their own ways, and they're all valid. Some people talk about it, some people just never feel like they can talk about it, or they don't have a desire to. And those are valid choices.
Yeah. No, they are.
I wish people would talk about it because it helps destigmatize, but I absolutely respect that some people just cannot revisit that. Yeah. You have to do what's best for you.
Absolutely. So how can people with loved ones who have become, through hell or high water, child-free, how can they be good loved ones to those people? Is there any kind of general advice you can give to those people, family members, friends, and so on?
So I think one thing that is important is don't feel like you have to solve it, or don't feel like you have an idea they haven't thought of. Like, trust me, we didn't opt for adoption, but we considered it. There isn't a route of family building that we didn't consider. So, offering unsolicited advice is our ass vice, maybe.
Did you say ass vice?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that again really clearly because that's the greatest. That is literally the greatest thing I've ever heard for all kinds of ass vice. That is amazing. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. No one wants your ass vice.
No one wants your ass vice. I'm going to get a shirt that says that. No one wants your ass vice.
I think we just named the podcast episode.
Oh my God. Oh my God. We did. That is the greatest thing.
So it's just better to listen. It is human nature to want to fix and to want to ease pain. But the very best thing that you can do as a friend or family member is just say, I'm sorry, that sounds really hard. Let me know how I can support you. Mm-hmm. That's it. Validate the feelings and let them know that you're there is just the absolute best thing that a person can do to show you their love.
That's wonderful.
In my opinion.
No, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So we've come to my favorite part of the conversation, which is your dogs. You have the most amazing dogs. They are puggles. They are so cute. So they are a huge part of your family. Tell me about the dogs.
Yeah. So we've got Paisley, Clover, and Sparrow, and they are our joy and they're what we spend our money on.
Yes, as they should be. Yes. Do you go to the dog bakery and get them little cupcakes and stuff like that?
I don't, but they have a miniature living room within my living room.
Oh, that's right. You showed me the picture. Oh my God.
That was kind of my pandemic mental break.
Is it doll furniture? Where is that? There's a sofa and a lamp.
It's a dog sofa. So originally we were looking to replace one of their old dog beds. So I was like, how funny would it be to get a couch? So I get this couch and it came.
Did you Google dog sofa or how did you find it?
It was on Amazon. Yeah.
Oh my God. Amazing.
Yeah. So it came and my husband was at work and I get this crazy little giddy idea that I could make this look like a tiny living room. So I went to Target and I got a tiny little miniature plastic plant. They have an end table or a side table, which is actually just a wooden tissue box.
Oh my God.
Cover that's just has the plant on it. They've got a rug and I put a lamp there and then he got home and saw it. I couldn't stop laughing. He thought I had absolutely lost my fucking mind. But then he went all in. And he decided that they should have wall art.
I thought so, because there's a little picture hanging on the wall, too.
Yeah. So.
Oh, my God. So genius. And do they actually hang out in there? Do they know it's their space?
It's literally just a corner of my living room that looks like a miniature living room.
Oh, my God. Wonderful. Well, is there anything that you would like to add just at the end? Anything you want to say to people who are considering this choice, or maybe the choice has been foisted upon them and they're wondering how they're going to move forward?
I think you had talked a lot about being happy. And I think it's important for me, having chosen this, to reiterate that you can be happy. It might not be today, it might not be next year, but if you can find peace, you can also find happiness. And there's many, many things like I was talking about, the things that we wouldn't have the bandwidth or the resources for if we were parenting. There will be those upsides for you too.
That's really important.
I'm also always happy to, if someone wants to reach out to me, I don't care. You could have my email address.
Can we say your email address?
I'll give you my Resolve one. It's brooke.resolve@gmail.com.
Fabulous. This is so wonderful. Thank you so much, Brooke. I'm so happy that we've connected, and I'm so grateful for all your perspectives on this, and you're just fabulous.
Oh, so are you. I look forward to a wonderful friendship.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out with Brooke and me. I love her for showing us a whole different kind of happy. I highly recommend checking out resolve.org to learn more about the resources, advocacy events, and opportunities for community involvement. And if you haven't heard yet, we're gearing up for a very special Season 2 finale featuring my own therapist, Savannah Sandfield, who specializes in the struggles of infertility, adoption, and more. Anything you want to ask, submit via email to ivfupodcast@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram at ivfupodcast by 1111. The IVFU podcast is produced by me, Sam Shaper, and Emmeline Somerton. Audio mastered by Logan Heftel. Thanks to Chris Bonelli for the late night Pro Tools parties, George Straighton for marriage, and Gary Scott for greasing the wheels. IVFU is a production of Inside Voices Media. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at IVFU Podcast. You can download our theme song, Freakin' Love, at ivfupodcast.com. And we'd love for you to review us on Apple Podcasts and spread the word to anyone who might be helped by these conversations. You can also be a huge help by leaving us a tip of any size, whatever you can afford, on Venmo and paypal.me at IVFU Podcast. Thank you. And thanks for listening. I'm happy we shared this time together because it's all about being a family.